and your children are turned into mindless vassals who now they look up to some twit instead of looking up to Thomas Jefferson or looking up to Nikola Tesla or looking up to Magellan. I mean, kids, Magellan's a lot cooler than Justin Bieber. He circumnavigated with one ship the entire planet. He was killed by wild natives before they got back to Portugal. And when they got back, there was only like 11 people alive of the 200 and something crew, and the entire ship was rotting down to the waterline. That's destiny. That's will. That's striving. That's being a trailblazer, an explorer, going into space, mathematics, quantum mechanics, the secrets of the universe. It's all there. Life is fiery with its beauty. It's incredible detail. Tuning into it. They want to shatter your mind talking about Justin Bieber.
Hello out there. We're on the air, baby. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy fresh week. Feeling fresh. Although it's been a tough morning here today, I'll tell you that. For free. We had what the hell? Go live. Balance. Settings. How come I have no title? No titles anymore on Zapstream or what? Settings. That's new. Oh well, we're live. It looks like on Zapstream. I got enough credits. We got a couple people over there by the looks of it. I think. Who knows? Anyways, we should put the word out there. Actually, we should put the word out there. Give me a second here. We should tell people that we're live. That's a good idea, eh? But yeah, we had a breach. We had a breach at the house today. And so that's what I've been dealing with. And so I apologize for being a little bit late here, but it's kind of might work out. Might change somebody's life today because of it. So we're going to talk about that here in a quick second. I'm just trying to let the people know. Let the people know that we're live, baby. Okay, share. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody's weekend? Is everybody sold their Bitcoin yet? We are live. I guess. Should probably be a little bit more Bitcoin. Okay, here we go. Rumble, YouTube. All right, we're live. See what happens. Let's see what happens. We got a good crew over on YouTube today. How's Rumble looking? Not bad. Better than YouTube, but we could bump those numbers up. No doubt about that. We got 30 people over on Rumble and only 6 likes. That's tough. Tough luck for the show. Tough look for the show, but we must go on. The show must go on. And so yeah, the title of today's show is "The Internet is About to Change Forever." I think it already has. I just don't think that most people have realized it yet. And there's going to be a lot of pain coming. There's going to be a lot of pain coming to people. And so just, I guess, quickly before we go into the show today, we had an email account that was hacked here at the house today. And it's pretty unsettling, I say, because a lot of our life is really dependent on some of these accounts, such as an email account. If you get locked out of your email account and you're spending a week or two of your life trying to get it back, best case probably. And that doesn't even include all the information that they stole from you. So the hack today, it wasn't just a hack either. It wasn't like some random person in a different country figured out the account. We looked at the activity, the sign-ins, and there were some in Spain, some in France, some in Bosnia, some in different parts of the world, all within 1 minute. It was just, I've never seen anything like that before. So there was all these different sign-ins from all these different countries within 1 minute of each other. So I don't really know what the implications or the fallout of this is going to be, but it's very unsettling to say the least, I'd say. So I guess we'll spend a couple minutes talking about that. Just a couple things you can do today to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. Because this problem, I'm not going to lie, and I got to be careful how loud I say this, but it could have been avoided, and it could have been avoided. So that's kind of how you need to be thinking through this stuff for the next forever. That's the title of the show today. Is it's going to change forever. Not this isn't a temporary thing. It's going to get worse, and then it's going to get exponentially worse, and then it's going to become to the point where everybody's fucked. And I don't really mean that in a way of like everybody's going to have their lives destroyed or whatever, like the worst case. Or that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about any sort of information that you have on the internet. Just consider it gone. Any information, whether that's a password manager, an email account, a Bitcoin wallet, I think that that's the best thing you can do is just consider it gone, because it probably is. If it's not yet, it probably will be very soon. So you have to understand that everything that's hot, everything that's on the internet is going to be gone. Also, kind of leading up to that, it's going to be the easiest picking fruit first, or like picture a fruit tree, and some of them are ready to fall down. Those are the ones you want to pick first because they're easy, they're low hanging. You don't have to get up on the ladder and grab those ones. You find the easiest ones to pick first, and it's no different in the world of hacking. It's the lowest hanging fruit. So that's your passwords, your logins, your private keys, all of these things. The lowest hanging fruit are going to be picked off first, but over time, everything's going to be low hanging fruit. Anything that's on the internet in its current version today is going to be gone, easily picked. So I guess whatever your runway there essentially then is, how good is your security today? How good are your passwords today? That's your runway. That's going to determine how long until everything that you have is gone. Literally. And I'm not like trying to scare people here. I'm not exaggerating this. This is literally going to happen. Anybody who's been paying attention to everything that's happening in AI and how fast it's moving and evolving, this is inevitable. And the way it ties into Bitcoin is a couple of reasons. Number one, Bitcoin's probably the thing that's most valuable if you are somebody who uses the internet. You got your email account that's associated with your exchange. You might have a balance on there. You probably have an Aqua wallet, or Rizful wallet, a wallet of Satoshi. These things are all hot. They're all they're low-hanging fruit. Even if you have a good password on it, it's going to be gone. So you got to be thinking about that. But the other thing too here is that Bitcoin is funny that there's kind of like the spam war going on right now in Bitcoin, the BIP 110 versus not BIP 110 versus core. You got to keep in mind those are two much different discussion points here. Most people kind of see them as the same, but BIP 110 versus not. And it's a war over spam. BIP 110 believes that they can reduce spam, make it more difficult for people to put spam, what they consider to be spam, on the time chain. But the irony of that is that Bitcoin in its current form as a censorship resistant network, protocol, time chain, is basically going to be what defeats spam on the internet. So think about that. That's kind of a mind fuck right off the hop on a Monday here. But the thing that everybody's arguing about, BIP 110 versus not, BIP 110 is trying to accomplish the, I would say, impossible task of getting rid of what they consider spam. But Bitcoin as it is, without the new update to it, is censorship resistant. Very difficult to fuck with. proof of work, transaction fees, that's the filter. Very difficult to mess with that. But it's going to be Bitcoin longer term here as this whole thing plays out, assuming nothing catastrophic happens in 2 weeks from now. As this thing plays out, Bitcoin is going to be the thing that protects you from spam on the internet because of the proof of work, because of the transaction fees, because it requires real physical energy to create these units that we call Satoshis. And I believe my long-term thesis here is that you will need Satoshis to have any sort of meaningful interaction and communication on the internet. If you don't have that, you're going to have a very difficult time on the internet. So it's super interesting to me that people, they kind of see Bitcoin, the average person sees Bitcoin as like this very speculative, risky, almost like a tech stock or like an investment. That's how the average person sees Bitcoin. Some Bitcoiners think that it's just money. It's just going to be this thing that we can, transact with. We can buy and sell things with without any sort of third-party involvement. And then there's people like me who kind of see a little bit further than that and see that there's something much, much bigger happening here that is more than money, way more than money. And if Bitcoin just becomes money and that's all it is, I would consider it a failed experiment, because what Bitcoin's going to be used for in the future, I think a lot of people can't really grasp. They can't really wrap their head around it because we haven't needed it yet. There hasn't been much of a need for it yet. But the world that we're moving into here and the internet that we're moving into requires Bitcoin, not just for, buying and selling shit. It's a money. Yes, it's a perfect money actually, but it's much, 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 much more than just a money. That's kind of like the real obvious part of it. But there's layers to this thing. And I think that, we're going to see in a couple weeks what happens here and how the Bitcoin consensus mechanism works. But until then, people will keep bitching at each other and arguing and wasting their own precious time. So that's what we're going to get into today is what we can do to protect ourselves, mostly to extend our runway. I guess that's a good way to put it, because you're not going to build anything here that's going to be sustainable. That's just the reality of things. Things are moving too quickly, way too quickly. So we're gonna try to extend our runway today. That's the main goal of today's show. Extend our runway as long as we can. That's all we can do. Literally all we can do at this point. Or the flip side of that is stop using the internet. But I don't think most people here are equipped to do that. But yes, Sat Sacker says Bitcoin ends spam. That's the whole thing. That's the unlock that people are missing right now. Everybody's fighting over spam on Bitcoin. Bitcoin actually ends spam, and it has to be censorship resistant in order for that to happen. Because if it changes very easily, then there's going to be some bad actors come along, which I believe have already arrived, are at the gates right now. They want to minimize Bitcoin's impact. But the good news for us is that it's very difficult. You have to pull off a miracle in order to change the consensus level of Bitcoin. And I don't think the miracle is here. Captain is here. Good morning, Captain. Captain, I started looking at your message on school yesterday, and I was doing something else at the time. I think I was actually paying some bills. So I got a little bit distracted, but I will take a look at that today. Read the first little bit, and it actually seemed pretty interesting and something that's kind of been on my mind lately too. Praetorian's here. Good morning, Praetorian. Mark, 6'5" Sats. The boys, look at them there. Bob on the left, Stewie on the right. Good to see you, fellas. Buck52 says eating oranges got to boost that vitamin C. Get some good orange juice from Lynn Alden there. Get some of Lynn's orange juice. Zapstream, how we doing? Anybody over there? Oh, yeah, I see a couple. We got two zappers over there. We got Rich, O'Brien, and Mateo. Morning, fellas. And thank you for the sats. I appreciate it. 88 sats each, Rich and Mateo. Oh, yeah, and I think I missed another one here. Maria 2500 says, good morning, happy Monday, everyone. Good morning, Maria. And it was from Maria, it looks like. So we got a glass of orange juice, we're going to call it today. We got a glass of orange juice from Maria 5K today. So thank you, Maria. She just says from Maria 5K. We got Rich, we got Mateo, and we got 99 sats from Scotty Boy over in wherever the hell he is. Stream Companion or something. Ginger's here. Good morning, Ginger. Good to see you, buddy. Rich on Rumble, Rich on Zapstream. Rich in life. Kev Keith, is this the right place, but a different time? Yep, it's exactly what it is. Right place, right time. That's right. That's where we are right now. Updated page. Okay, let's check this out, Scotty. How are we looking here? How's she looking? Let's go, Scotty says. I hear nothing is safe these days. It's true. It is true, but it looks like this is working. It is true, but it looks like this is really cool, Scotty. I think I might actually make this my official homepage for people. I really like that it ties in Rumble, but also allows for zapping. Like, this is fucking cool, man. This is kind of like our own little internet over here. The only shitty thing is, Scotty, and I don't know if there's anything that we can do about this. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's got to be a way to do this. But for me to pull up these comments on my screen here, I'd say that's the only thing that's missing on here. Obviously, I would like to have a little bit of customization on it, but it's pretty cool, man. Like, watching through Rumble, which is good for me, good for the Rumble channel, chatting on here and being able to zap easily. That's really cool, man. I'm bullish on Scotty. Bullish on Scotty. Sat Stacker says, mentally, I'm with those Ducks. Me too, man. Hey, here's a new face. Bear Bulldog says, pouring water on a duck. Buck 52 says, just because I care, hacker wipes European countries' entire land registry database, paralyzing the real estate market. Get a physical copy of your deed. This is the trend, man. This is what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. Hacker wipes European countries' entire land registry database, paralyzing the real estate market. Get a physical copy of your deed. I just see this happening with literally everything. Like, you have to understand that AI and its capabilities are moving probably 100,000 times faster than companies, governments, entities, organizations are able to keep up with their security. Like, that's the disconnect here. That's why this is going to happen. The capabilities of AI as it is today, and getting better by the second, is moving 100,000 times faster than people, entity, organizations, governments, companies can keep up with their infrastructure, their IT infrastructure. So this is going to just keep happening. And, you know, who's to say that this is the interesting part to me. Who's to say that this isn't going to happen with the stock market? Why couldn't it? Why couldn't it? Yes, it's probably not the easiest thing to do, but is it possible? If it's not today, it could be tomorrow. That's the whole point of this conversation today. Bank accounts, loan agreements. That'd be a good one. That'd be a good one to get rid of our fucking debt to these dipshits. But land registries, stock brokerages, everything's up for grabs right now. Except for one thing. You get yourself one of these. You get your keys offline, then they have to physically come to your house. That's what you're making them do by getting a cold card. You're going to make them physically come to your house. There's no way that they can do it from fucking Bosnia or France or anywhere else in the world. They're going to have to physically come to your house if they want to get your Bitcoin. So this, I would say that this should be, anybody who's watching the show today, this should be your number one priority. And I don't care if you have to, cancel your Netflix for the year, or, if you're that far behind, maybe it's, if you can't afford to get a cold card, then you probably don't really need to worry about it. But I'm guessing most people here have a little bit of disposable income or cash reserve. You have to get a cold card. That's step one. Step two is you probably want to have a passphrase on that. Step three is you want to get 3 of these devices. So that's what I would suggest to anybody out there who has like a decent balance of Bitcoin, and you're going to be adding to it through the years, and it's going to become more and more valuable through the years. I would just do it now, because again, who the hell knows what's going to happen? I don't know. Do I think that the governments will probably stop allowing these into their countries? Probably. These are like the equivalent of a bazooka, or not even that. That's very minor compared to what this thing is. This is more like a nuclear bomb. Sounds crazy. But if you think that Bitcoin is a weapon, as I do, this is the equivalent of a nuclear weapon. And countries, they don't want you to have nuclear weapons, obviously. But they haven't really figured this out yet. A lot of the governments are pretty behind on this whole thing. So I do think that once they figure out what's going on and people are actually withdrawing themselves from their system, and the more people that withdraw themselves from that system, the weaker they become, they're going to start clamping down on this a little bit more. So that's the first thing. And I mean, the cool thing about this cold card queue is it doesn't just store your private keys to your Bitcoin. It'll store a lot of different things, including your passwords. And the thing most exciting to me right now is this, and that's why I wore this shirt today. The Citadel Vault, I would say, is kind of like the next level. It's not where you start. I would say it's where you end. The Citadel Vault is where you end. Cold card's where you start, because the Citadel Vault is, it's pretty expensive. And I think that, Craig probably won't enjoy me saying this, but, if I was in the middle of my Bitcoin journey right now and I was looking at a Bitcoin price of $65,000, I might take my $2,000 or $3,000 that I would spend on a Citadel Vault and probably just buy Bitcoin. However, that's probably going to change in the next 3, 4, 5 months. So this concept that my advice here has a temporary measure, but eventually you want to get yourself into one of these things. That's what I would do if I was kind of like in the middle of my Bitcoin journey. If I was still trying to get, I was maximizing my accumulation right now, and I had a couple $1,000. I probably wouldn't buy the vault today. I would wait a couple months, but what I would do with that is I would buy Bitcoin, obviously, at 65,000. And I mean, you look at the charts, you look at everything right now, we're probably going to keep going up from here. This is probably going to be the low. I think that the low happened earlier this year. I could be wrong about that still, but I'm not going to be wrong by much. So you buy some Bitcoin, you get yourself one of these, a cold card, and this is kind of what you use in the meantime. But eventually, whether it's 3, 4, 6 months down the road, this is what you want to get your hands on right here. Because you can basically take everything that you have on the internet, all of the passwords, all of the usernames, all of the logins for everything, for your emails, exchanges, wallets, everything involved with your digital life, which is, if you're anything like me, it's growing by the day. It's multiplying like a fucking gremlin of how much information you have to keep track of. You put it all on this thing. And then again, you remove the ability for somebody in a different part of the country to access your information and share it at the speed of light with everybody in their little cartel fucking hacker network. So you just get everything off there. Not only that, but you're going to make it very easy for your kids or whoever you're leaving your life to, your digital life to. Very easy to do that via the Vault OS. And I saw that, speaking of cold card, I saw NVK's got a little something coming out that's pretty similar to the Citadel Vault. It's probably going to be a little bit cheaper. You know, they have a little bit better manufacturing process and distribution, but I don't know if it'll be as well done as this. This thing is like, I don't know. I really believe, I think it was Sin actually who said that it was, he called it a nuclear weapon. I said that about the cold card cube, but you know, take it to the next level with this Citadel Vault. So if you're interested in this, even if you don't want to order it like within the next couple months, like I said, you can set up a call with me. We can talk about it, see if it makes sense for you to have one of these. Because again, you're keeping everything in here. This goes far beyond just your Bitcoin private keys. You're putting your legal documents in here, all your passwords, all your logins to everything that you have online. It goes into this thing. And then basically you turn 1,000 passwords into one and you take it all offline. That's really what this is. You're taking thousands of passwords that you have kind of in different places or in a centralized password manager, and you put it into one, and then you just need one backup of this. It's got all your passwords, all your private keys, the locations of everything. Very, very easy for your family to recover it, or you. You know, it's called an inheritance computer, but it's also going to be very handy for the people who are living, right? Like this is going to be my best friend because the way that I have my setup right now, it's pretty, complicated. And I cannot wait to just simplify it and get everything that I have from all different places, put it into one. And then I just have one thing to focus on protecting. So this is, Lucky's on the yard. So this is the Citadel Vault. I don't know if oh yeah, you can see him. Hunting. Luxter the Hunter. So yeah, that's what I would do. And again, no pressure here. I'm happy to chat about it for anybody out there who's interested in ordering one. I mean, you could just order one directly from the website. I think my referral code is 88 sats. Pretty sure anyways. But you can just set up a call. You can ask any questions, see if it makes sense for what you got going on. And yeah, that's the Vault. I'm going to be talking about this more because I really think this is the most powerful weapon in Bitcoin, in your sovereign life. So there it is there. And where's Zapstream? There it is. Hey, Mark. 65 sats zapped a Mark Zap. He said, let's get this week started. Happy Monday. Amen. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it, buddy. So that's the Vault. That's going to be very, very important to you. So if you don't have the ability to purchase one today, I would say start saving for one. Start saving for one. Sketchucation, Rich says, is Primal Stream stuttering mess for anyone else? Yeah, it sounds like they're having some issues there. Sounds like they're having some issues there. Sat Stacker says, Prime Alex Jones was an era, no doubt. Donnie says, hey, hi, Jor. It's Donnie. Good morning, Donnie. Donnie Fashion Set. Haven't seen Donnie for a while. Marco's here. J-Dog's here. Scotty says, still working on the QR scan and getting closer. Nice. That a boy. That a boy. Jake's here. Jake with the Bitcoin hat. 21 hats. Good morning, Jake. Casey says, motivation to screw over others decreases as the world becomes more Bitcoin. KCW, motivation to screw over others decreases as the world becomes more Bitcoin. I agree with that. I do agree with that strongly. Because the fiat system is a very dog-eat-dog world. It's a zero-sum game. It's a zero-sum game, which means that everybody thinks that, you know, if you have this, I can't have it. And, you know, everybody's poor right now because of fiat. Everybody's poor and getting poorer by the second. Every single second of every single day, they're printing unmeasurable amounts of fiat dollars of these things. Unmeasurable. We're past the point of measuring this anymore. The measuring stick we call fiat has failed many, 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 many times over, and failing more. So people are hurting. People are starving. People are freezing to death. Now, obviously not in July, but in in 6 months from now, people are freezing to death. People are angry. People are at a very low vibration. That's the whole goal of the propaganda, all the bullshit, is to keep everybody at a very low vibration. But fortunately, many of us have been able to break free of that. Many of you are here today, and I do agree with this. I think that every single person, all 8 billion people, are, as we're told, anyways. I wonder how many people are actually on Earth. It has to be less. It has to be less than 8 billion. And you might say, well, Jor, what would be the incentive for them to increase the census? What's their incentive to boost the census numbers? That's what we call it in Canada here anyways, census. But the reason is because when they can add people, especially the way the elections work in the US and Canada, when you can concentrate people and essentially boost the numbers in certain areas, certain regions, then they get more power. They get more voting rights because of it. So in Canada here, that's very Ontario focused, very heavily in Ontario. The election's usually done before they get to Manitoba here because of the population in Ontario. And they do that in the US too. There's a bunch of different cities within the US that have, I don't know the exact technical aspect of it, but if you can fake the numbers of people, then you have more voting power, essentially. And it's how the fiat system works. Everything about the fiat system is a fucking scam. Head to toe, everything about it is a lie, totally fake, biggest illusion in human history. And that's it. It's pretty simple. Scotty says, that's something I'm looking into. It's a little difficult. Okay, good man. Senior Gringo, good morning. Sergeant Crow says, no cold card yet, however, using watch and receive only. Blue wallets that have never been hot connected anywhere. Nice. So how'd you derive those then? What did you use to derive those private keys? Craig must be working hard, man. I haven't heard from him for a while now. But he's trying to get everything ready because the first batch of orders is scheduled to go out in August/September, I believe. So he's got a lot on his plate right now, making sure that the first batch gets delivered on time. So it's fun. I'm thinking if you ordered one, in the next little while, you'll probably get it the second batch, like maybe October, November-ish. So you can put a deposit on it too. I mean, Craig's very flexible. I'm happy to help if you if you have any questions or need a specific situation, we can probably make it work. But man, you want to get your hands on one of these ASAP as possible. The backyard looks so different in the summer, doesn't it? Compared to the winter. Winter's just all freaking white, all white. Got some color here, man. It's full here. Looks like a fucking jungle. Plebinator, NVK's product uses cloud though. I don't trust that. How does it use the cloud? How does it use the cloud? What part of it uses the cloud? I've never heard that before. So unless you got information that I don't know how the cold card would ever use the cloud. Win-win is better. Paradigm, good to see you, man. Sergeant Crow says, grateful for 88 sats, educating me and sharing insights regarding Bitcoin. Big thank you. Big Bitcoin thanks you. Yeah, I don't really know what that means. I don't think that there's. We'll see. Maybe Plebinator knows something that I don't know. Does he? He could. Old phone, factory reset, download Blue Wallet, fully disconnect, create wallets, save seed, and copy QR code with the main phone. Save seeds and copy QR. So when you're saying copy QR with main phone, that means just the public key for the watch only. Save seeds. Old phone. But I feel like if you generated those private keys with an old phone, then they would still be connected to the internet at that time, no? Factory reset. So then if you did a factory reset, they wouldn't store in the phone, but they would have had to been, unless you were disconnected from the internet when you generated the keys. Hey, look at this. Brandon Gentili is in the house. Brandon, you hopping on here? We don't got very long. I don't know if Brandon and I could have a conversation of less than an hour. I don't know if it'd be possible. What did Brandon say here? Okay. Brandon's coming on. Do not, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts here too. Do not use a phone. That seems, I don't know. I mean, you probably get away with it. The issue though is that I just, there's way too much at stake. There's way too much at stake here to be, if you even have to ask the question, is it safe? Then I would be staying away from that. Okay, Brandon, link is on the way. Link is en route. Yeah, I agree, man. It's not that difficult to do it a different way. Let's take a look into this actually, as we wait for Brandon to hop on here. We should probably get to the mempool too quickly. See what's going on in the hash wars, the Bitcoin hash wars. So we got the block height of 959,848. We've almost crossed another 10,000 blocks. And Pool is the winner of the last two. We got SEC Pool via BTC Foundry. Hey, does anybody have? I asked the chat for this last week, but does anybody have the BIP 110 mempool, like where you can see the acceptable blocks, compatible blocks? I'm seeing a lot of these lately too. These unknown miners. I've never seen as much as I'm seeing right now of these unknown miners. I love it though. So it looks like Ocean here, Peak Mining and SOV got two back to back, but that was 12 hours ago. That was the last blocks. It's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. And actually, I want to bring up a tweet involving that as well. But that's where we are right now. So I'm pretty sure, let's double check this too, actually. And some people are going to get mad at me for this. Fuck, what was that on now? Oh, man, what was that on? That was the countdown. I think that was countdown till the block. What was that here? Oh, right here. Oh, it's just BIP110.com. Okay. Let's check this out. BIP110.com. Whoa. So I don't know why this has days on it, because it's not days. So this is BIP110.com. So 1783, yeah, that's right. So if we go back to, here, so it looks like the mandatory activation is going to be at the end of this. Wow, we're coming down to it here, folks. We're coming down to it. There he is. Good morning.
What is good? What's up, Jor? How are you?
You're a little bit delayed here, I think.
Yeah, it might take a second.
Can you hear me?
Hold on. Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, that's better.
Better?
Yeah. Okay, we're back. We are back. What's going on?
Not much. There's nothing going on in the world at all. So it's just all quiet in the Western Front, as they say. So,
man, Twitter would say otherwise.
Holy cow. Just wild. So my one thought of all this, I've just been doing, as you know, a bunch of studying of the founders and American history, and just going back, and it's wild because they fought so much over the new the founding of America. And the one thing that's sad and it sucks, and I don't know how you because that was a decentralized nation states are anarchy, which is kind of like what Bitcoin is basically, right? Like there's no one really in control. And then you had this new world where it's like, what are you going to do? Who's going to choose what to do? And you had, a lot of people, again, there's 3 million people in America, but you had a lot of people that were just like, they didn't really care. Like they were just like living their life, and they're like, wait, what? We're at war? Well, with who? What? Like, and so it's a lot like Bitcoin, right? Like almost everyone in the world is completely oblivious to what's going on. And there's literally a civil war going on with like, I don't know, 1,000 people, a couple thousand people, like 10,000 people. Like, I don't even know. Like it's such a small fraction of society. And it feels like to many of the way the world is on you.
But it's also global though.
It's a global civil war, but with a fraction of the population involved, right? Like it's the wildest thing that you've ever seen. But my one thing, I guess, where I was going with all of it though, is that you had like a James Madison, you had a lot of these guys, and they would sit and debate for hours, and then their history is unbelievable. And again, I've had people like, well, did you know there were slave owners, stuff like that? It's like, okay, I'm actually going to do a show on that going forward, which of course, yes, some of them were slave owners, stuff like that. And there's many reasons for that. There's all kinds of reasons if you actually do work why they didn't get rid of them. Some of them were very, hurt by it, but also that was their livelihood. So they didn't know how to reconcile it. Like it's so nuanced. And when your life growing up on a plantation and you're passed down, like it's all it's like, think of just, it's like this. It's like trying to tell someone about inflation, and they look at you, like their eyes glaze over, like, what do you mean, bro? Like my entire life, like I don't even know what you're saying. So that's how smart they actually were, because they knew what was right and wrong, but they were so, whatever. We'll talk more about that. The whole point with all that is the nuance and the debate that they went to, like the rigorous debate for hours and hours, going back and forth, writing to each other, writing their thoughts down, and then in Congress, in whatever it was, in halls, actually debating these things. Wild. And it's sad because we don't get that with Bitcoin, really, unfortunately. And that's the thing that really sucks.
You don't think we do?
I don't think we do. I mean, we have a lot of people just yelling and screaming at each other. And if someone's debating somewhere and doing Lincoln Douglas style debates and talking for hours about this is my side and that's your side, and here's what I think your side is, and it still gets heated. It's not that it doesn't get heated or something like that, but I don't know. And maybe it's just different because it's decentralized and there's pockets of, to your point, George, like there's pockets of the internet where you can kind of get some of the debate and people actually, they're putting their thoughts out there and things of that nature. But unfortunately, just so much of it has just boiled down to like, throwing out, people are highly regarded and this and that. And, it's just like, oh man, like I wish there was actual debate, because, I can make cases for both sides. Like I can sit here and just be like, yeah, like there's cases, and because life's is trade-offs. Like to me, I think we have problems both ways. Like if BIP 110 wins, you still got problems. If the core or like, not BIP 110 wins, we still got problems. And that's my biggest fear, I think, in all this, is that people just like think like, yes, okay, we're on. Like, and then people walk away, they disappear into the field of dreams and in the corn stalks. And then it's like, okay, we here more problems start springing up again. And it's good though, overall, because contention is good. These things are good. It makes people really get back down to the basics again. And that's where, like, I think we lose a lot of that and understanding that they're like, this is good because a lot of people are learning things that they're running nodes for the first time or whatever it is. It would just be, I would like to see more rigorous debate. I'd like to see more people debating instead of more people, mudslinging, but that's life, I guess. So anyway, that's my shorthand thoughts.
I've actually been tuning into the Bitcoin spaces for the last couple of weeks. I've found that to be,
and I have not. Yeah. I have not. So you're right. Maybe they are. That's the town hall. That's the Federalists making their case and stuff like that. I mean, that's
how it feels to me.
Okay, well, good. I know 3 or 4 years ago, I remember saying that when I was on Spaces a lot, and I remember saying, like, this is the town hall. This is what it is. I just don't have time, unfortunately, to do that anymore. But
yeah, and it's tough because some of them last like for 4 hours, and they're hard to access. I don't know. I really like the idea of it, and for somebody who spent the last couple of years, focusing my time on Nostr. Nostr doesn't really have the network as it is today. I do think that it has a very bright future still, and maybe social isn't the use case for it. Yep. I still think that it is, but I've really found X to be as much shit you have to filter through on there. The spaces aspect of X is very powerful. So it's been it's been really interesting to me to listen through these, but it's tough because it is so long. It cuts in and out. Sometimes, if you miss 5 minutes, you miss a big part of the conversation. It's hard to go back and find it after. Like, it's just, there's too much friction there still. I really hope that it improves somehow over time. But I guess from my perspective of what you were talking about there, because I do agree with you. I think that if BIP 110 succeeds, we're still going to have problems. If it fails, we're still going to have problems. But from your perspective, based on kind of what you've seen and been learning, what would be the bad things from each? If BIP 110 activates, what's the negative about that? And if it fails, what's the negative about that?
Yeah, so I think, like, in trying to just encapsulate it in like a minute or two, obviously, which is tough. Grand scope, if BIP 110 doesn't win, then I think you have the obvious like the fee market's going to control everything type of attitude, which again, I've changed my mind a lot in the last 6 months. Like, I don't think when you look at the American founding, and they wrote about there has to be good, moral, religious people in order to make this experiment work. I think we discount a lot as libertarians, as Bitcoiners, et cetera, the fact that the fee market, we think it's going to substitute like morality almost, and like, and it's tough because there's a case to be made, obviously, of the free market actors doing their thing. When you look at the money flows, right, incentives and what's happening, that's worrisome to me, and shutting down debate initially and things of that nature. So I think you're still going to have issues of the decentralization part of people continually just eating away at the chain slowly over time. Like, it's not going to, like, I'm going to put in, it just over time, my worry is the frog in the boiling pot of 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Where it's like, oh my gosh, we really can't run, it's not as decentralized, like not as many people can run the chain, and maybe we're fine. Maybe it's totally fine. And like, costs keep coming down so much that it is fine. Yeah. But that's the trade-off, I guess, right? Like, we don't know those things. And the founding fathers talked about this a lot. This is what's really fascinating too, Jor. And I stand corrected in the sense that you're right. The spaces, because out of my own mouth, I remember again years ago saying this, that is a form of it. I wish we could be in person more, and like they were, but I know you can't. Like you said, it's global. And so it is very tough. Yeah. So this is probably the best thing we have, generally speaking. But so they argued a lot. And then you look at James Madison and a lot of these guys, they compromise a lot. There's a lot of compromise. And some of them switched their positions. Like James Madison was really against, when he was president, and all leading up, he was very construction, very much more like states' rights, against Alexander Hamilton, who wanted to federalize the debts, have more the national bank, stuff like that. And he actually changed his mind when the War of 1812 happened. He said, oh shit, we just got run over by the British again, basically, because the British basically won the war. It was like basically a miracle that the British, like, no one knew that the British were like just ransacking, burned the White House, stuff like that. And then Andrew Jackson won a huge battle that killed 2,000 British in like New Orleans. And the Americans were just getting beat, left and right. And then everyone found that out, and that Jackson crushed, and like I think 100 Americans were lost, and then 2,000 British were lost. So that was like a huge rallying point. And at the same time, they were signing like a peace treaty, basically, kind of just saying like, hey, it's a draw, basically. But the Americans were getting beat. But then the Americans took it as like, look, we won. Like, yeah, like, but nothing had happened. Like the peace treaty, but the memo, the telegram hadn't come back yet. Of like, so it was like this weird like confluence, like miracles in essence happening, where it's like, how in the world does that, like just some of these things that happen. So, but my point was that James Madison switched his mind. He realized, you know what, maybe I was wrong, and I think we do need more of a little bit more federal power, slightly, where they can make sure there's an army that doesn't just run us over, come in and just, come up the river and burn everything down and stuff like that. Because the states were really fighting. Still, the states were going anti-federalist, federalist, and going back and forth of how much power should the federal government have. So I guess all that to say, we're going to continue having these fights, which are good. That it's good. Yeah. But that's my worry of like us just kind of like being off, not on guard, and people kind of being lulled to sleep. Now, if BIP 110 wins, and there's nuance there, but then if BIP 110 wins, I think it is more virtue signaling. So like people are like, it's a virtue signaling thing. Well, of course it is. That's what a lot of these things are in life. It's the Boston Tea Party saying, hey, get the fuck out of here. Like, it didn't destroy anything right that second, but you're virtue signaling and saying, hey, we're going to put up a fight, and we're not going to go easy. And so that to me is the actual importance of BIP 110 and trying to drive people away, bad actors away from the system. Now, then it could be, does it set precedent if that happens? I don't know, maybe not. You still have to garner support, which is, again, going back to the James Madison, the Federalist Papers, and then we debate online for a year. It's been 2 years, and it really ramps up right at the end. Obviously, when there's scarcity, the timeline's coming. So people are really ramping up. But then the actors, people need to get informed, and then they actually get serious and say, okay, you know what, I do believe these people. Because you and I could get a BIP, we could create 100 BIPs, but if they're just there's no reason, then no one's going to tag onto them, and it's just not going to go anywhere. So the fact that there is a lot of people, whether they're economic nodes or not, to me, that says something. That's a lot of people saying, hey, I don't think this is a good way to go. Now there's some real energy there, and again, I don't know how that figures out one way or another, but to me, I just don't see like the censorship part. I know the one big thing also people say is censorship at BIP 110. Again, there's, I don't even know, dozens and dozens of rules and protocols within the Bitcoin system. So you're basically saying like, we need to get rid of all these other rules too, is you're censoring people. Like what if I want 1 million in op return? You're censoring me. What about 1 trillion in op return? You're censoring me. And so that censorship falls flat on its face to me. And so if people think it's a big enough problem, it will be. And this goes back to like a 21 million hard cap, right? There's a spectrum of what people think is appropriate or not, right? If someone's trying to go to 22 million, then 95% of the network would come in right away and be like, whoa. At least I hope. I mean, I hope it would. I guess I shouldn't say that flippantly, but there's a spectrum of attack where more actors would say immediately, hey, no, we're not doing this. So that's where the BIP 110 thing, maybe it is 30%, 40%, 50%. Maybe it is somewhere. And then the network. And again, if it fails, maybe this happens again a year or two from now. This might happen in 5 years from now. And so like, maybe it's more of and that's it, Joy, right? Like maybe it's more of an issue then. Maybe that it's doubled, it's tripled, and now it's becoming a bigger problem. So then more people, so anyway, I guess, again, going back out and zooming all out, I wish we could have been in-person debate. We can't really. But we're still going to have issues either way. And this is not going to end. You have the American Revolution, literally 1763. They were debating this stuff. Like I said, James Madison changed his mind when he was president on some of these things. And that was almost 50 years later, 40 years later in the 1810s. So this is not something that's going to go away. And again, my only concern is that we are so we're so light on our history and our knowledge of these things, and our skill at debating, and our skill of low time preference. Like back then, people they had time in the sense of not, there's still 24 hours in a day, but they had time in the sense that they didn't have screens in their face. They weren't distracted by a lot of other things. It was like, hey, I'm trying to make some money, and then I write at night and I read, and and that's what we do. So I don't know. I mean, that's what are your thoughts on everything though?
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering, and this may be something for you to think on for a couple seconds while I say, my thoughts on it. But like, do you think at some point in the future we will have in-person things? Like,
Mm.
maybe the biggest economic nodes get together in person and figure it out.
I mean,
know.
yeah. I mean, and again, we kind of did, right, with the New York agreement. They tried that. The Bitcoin Foundation. Some of these things have happened before, so I think Satoshi Roundtable type stuff, which still goes on. There's things going on in secret. There's things that go on behind the scenes that no one knows about, and that's the beauty of Bitcoin too. Like, and that's why going back to BIP 110 is a virtue signaling event. That's where the plebs are standing up and saying, whether it happens or not, people are saying, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" Like this, there's a lot of us that don't agree with this. That's good. That's good. That's how the American founding, that's how these things happen, whether it's successful or not. And to me, again, people say, hey, is BIP 110 going to fork off? Like, I hope people don't. I hope you come back to the table and keep fighting. That'd be like saying, hey, America, screw it. Like, I'm out of here. Now some people, if you're a communist, then yeah, like, sure, go, leave and get out of here. But to me, it's like, well, hey, I still have the protocol. Like Bitcoin itself, I'm still going to fight for it, whether I'm for BIP 110 or not, or whatever. If it goes to 22 million or something like that, then yeah, maybe I need to go find another chain, something like that. But until they take the right to bear arms, here in America, which they slippery slope. They make more rules every single year. They've been trying to make it harder and harder, frogging the boiling pot. So it's tough, but yeah, no, I think that's I think we will have a Jor. I think we'll have more like that. And we already have, right? But I think that will continue, to your point.
Yeah, I think that the main pushback I'd have there on the censorship aspect of Bitcoin is like the block size, like how much data you can actually put inside of a block, that has never changed. Core changed the policies and the filters on what your mempool would see and what it didn't. But there's still a maximum of how much you can put in one single block. And that's kind of like the foundation, the laws of Bitcoin. So it's not really censoring. That's just the way the laws were based on Satoshi's design and how he, what would be most efficient for managing all these different things, right? And it's like, yeah, he could have made the blocks bigger, but he realized that he wanted individuals like ourselves to be running nodes. So you can only have so much. If there's less space available, that should inherently drive up the fees and get the miners paid and incentivized. And it's this whole thing, right? So I don't necessarily agree that would be censorship, just telling people what they can. Those are just the laws of Bitcoin. There's 4 megabytes in this block, and that's it. And that's what
I think we're on the same. I think we're on the same team as that. Like, I don't think there's, like you said, I guess the only thing that you hear talk about here and there is, to me, there's a lot of, just as humans, I don't think we put enough weight on de facto policy being a law in and of itself, right? It can open our prison. Like, when it's default to something, people just take it. Like, humans don't, like, when most of us aren't questioning things. We're just like, oh, here it is. That, to me, so again, people could argue both sides that, obviously, and I could as well. I guess I lean more on the de facto type of stuff is policy. Goes back to Thomas Paine once again, of like, when a wrong is just disregarded for so long, it becomes right. There's a sense of just it being right at the end of the day. And that's the side I fall on, I guess, just 51-49 with it.
Yeah. And I've actually talked to people that I very much respect in Bitcoin over these last couple of weeks and months. And they say that they believe that making the blocks smaller would actually be a better improvement than the BIP 110 proposal. If that's the end goal, is to make sure that everybody's fully decentralized, everybody can run a node, then why not just make the block smaller? Like that, I couldn't see any bad come
That's
from
the next fight.
Yeah,
that's the next fight, Jor. Watch, because this will be this fails BIP 110, and then 2 years from now, this is what's happening. Yeah, I mean, and again, it goes back to, this doesn't end. This never ends, right? And that's so
it will for some, though. I think that there's
it might. Yeah,
there's so much that's been invested into either side of this.
True.
That there's going to be people after this. What do we got here? We have
what is it? 2 weeks or something?
1,779 blocks left until it happens. 12 days. Oh, it's projected to be August 8th at 10 o'clock Saturday at 10 p.m. Wow, that'll be something. I think
a lot of drunkenness
live for it.
Really? Yeah. lot of drunken stupors, maybe a lot of
Yeah, I think I'm planning as
man.
long as it's like then. I think that I could probably make that work. Although Saturday night's hard.
I might be able to as well. I know it's tough. I think we have something the weekend before that, but I think that weekend I'm open. I think.
Yeah, because next weekend's August long, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a bachelor party next weekend.
Yeah. Yep.
August
long.
Yeah,
we have a family reunion party and stuff. Yep.
Reunion. Nice.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I wanted to share this too, kind of while we're on the subject of the BIP 110 stuff. Again, I think that where people are getting most lost right now is, going too far either way. I think the best thing people can do right now is just kind of keep an open mind to it, and don't be closed-minded, I guess. But this is from Fibo Swanee. I've been watching this BIP 110 debate, and I think people are getting way too wrapped up in picking a side and not enough in appreciating what we're actually watching.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've just been saying. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh man.
Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO who gets to settle this. That's the beauty of a decentralized network. There isn't a board meeting where somebody takes a vote and sends out the new rules Monday morning. People are going to disagree. Yeah, because everybody has different incentives.
Every single person. Yeah.
Perspective, right?
Yep.
Everybody has different knowledge too. Like I might have something that you don't know, or you have stuff that I don't know.
Yes.
So developers will write code. Miners will make decisions, node operators will decide what they're willing to run, and the economic network will ultimately decide what Bitcoin values. Not Bitcoin failing, it's an entire experiment working. What concerns me is watching people become so convinced that they're protecting Bitcoin that they start believing everyone else should be forced to accept their version of it. That's where I think we've lost the plot. I don't know exactly how this plays out, neither does anyone. Maybe it gains support, maybe it goes nowhere, maybe we get some ugly disagreement. Good. Bitcoin was never supposed to protect us against disagreement. It was supposed to remove the need for someone with authority to settle it for us. I think that's the key part of this.
Yeah.
It was never supposed to protect us from disagreement. It was supposed to remove the need for someone with authority to settle it for us. And that's been one of the big things. So it says, run your node, understand the rules, make your decision, then we'll find out where consensus actually lives. That's Bitcoin to me.
Beautiful.
And I think that that's been one of the realizations for me is like, there's people have been debating on these spaces. Even Gary Cardone was on there a couple of weeks ago saying, Bitcoin as it is today, it's bound to fail because there's no centralized authority that can make a decision.
Yep.
But I mean, that's the whole thing. And I think that that's what people have to remember here is that it's very difficult to change by design. If you want to make a change to this thing, to the foundation, the laws of Bitcoin, you're going to need a good effort there. You're going to need a very concerted effort. And that's what makes it what it is.
Right. Honestly, man, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, Gigi wrote about this in one of his books. I forget if it was Bitcoin is Time or 21 Lessons, but he talks about decentralization and that it's very difficult by design to make a change when there's nobody to say this is right, this is wrong. The network has to agree. All the different economic actors in this the fight have to agree that this is the best path forward. And the cool thing to me, what changes from our political landscape, our fiat world, is that it resets every 4 years. So that every 4 years there's an election, regardless of how good the other guy was. If someone comes along and they can print a bunch of money and change a bunch of people's minds and propagandize people, they can steal it back. And people usually get fed up with one, then they switch back and forth. This is like the longest chain wins, which means if nothing's broken, you're not going to change it unless there's a real need to change it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Exactly.
That's the only way a decentralized network works.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's exactly, that is the beauty of Bitcoin, like you said. And at the end of the day, I think we do. I love that. I love that you just shared. I mean, that explains exactly what we're talking about. I think that's how you and I both feel. I can make arguments for both sides, but again, there's no right way. And that's what's tough. It's just trade-offs. Life is incentives, probabilities, and trade-offs. That's all it is. And what really has struck me over the last, week or so is going back and really listening to some of these biographies and some of these things about the founding of America and just these debates and arguments for weeks, for days, weeks, months they had back and forth about this stuff. And a lot of them admitting too, like, we think this is the best way to do this, from all their study. And then, hey, we don't know what's going to, like I said, James Madison changing his mind on some big things, and seeing it play out in real time. that's Bitcoin, right? Like you're going to have to change some of these things over time. Like, oh, Taproot, SegWit, you know, whatever it is, if we do something and then there are things that need to happen, maybe this is it. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's another bit. Maybe it's 2 years from now. Maybe it's 5 years from now. You know, like this is it just, and I think we have to be comfortable with that. That's why I love that post. It's so good. And it's the beauty of just being able to step back and watch it play out. And we have a say. Everyone has a say in it.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of it as well. To your point, like, it's not like, oh, you know, does my vote count? You know, like, you know, so anyway, yeah, man,
it's important.
So good. So important.
Because that's one thing to me that's really, you know, decentivized me from voting in the last couple elections here, because I truly felt that my vote didn't matter. I'd seen too many things here in Canada, watched it in 2020 in that election, the biggest farce I've ever witnessed in my life. Like without no second best to that, you know, it's like,
oh man.
Just, I mean, everybody kind of picks, and this is kind of an aside here, but everybody likes giving Trump shit on things. But man, you go back a couple of years and you watch some of the interviews and the things that Biden was going through. Oh my God,
dude,
man.
George, my favorite thing ever, I think my favorite thing I've ever seen in my life is when Joe Biden fell off the bike. He wasn't hurt, which is great. But then the next day, someone had come and drawn the chalk outline on the pavement. That was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know why. That sticks in my head rent free, and I will never ever forget that.
But it was just over and over, man. There'd be 1 week a new thing happening.
Everything.
Like him tripping, going up the
tripping,
stairs.
going over the Air Force graduation. I mean, like over and over. I remember
going the wrong way, shitting his pants.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll never forget.
Nobody wanted to call him out on it because the whole media is owned by that, you know, side of things. But God,
I'll never forget, because this is like, again, it's like one of those things where, like with Barack Obama, I mean, again, I was a weirdo as a kid paying attention to all that stuff. So it's like at the time I knew who Obama was because I had done a lot of research and a lot of homework and saw who he studied with growing up, and you know, the communists of the world, et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, okay, this is going to end badly. Like, I'm just telling you guys where this is going to go. And oh my gosh, now I forget what I was going to say. Damn it. Anyway,
we're talking about shitting pants, falling upstairs.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The falling up the stairs. So this was the same thing in the sense of, like, with Biden, you knew what you were getting. You knew this was going to happen if you were paying attention at all.
Yeah.
So I remember this was like the first month when he fell up the stairs on Air Force One. And I'll never forget this either, because he had just got inaugurated. It's like a month or two later. And so it's 2 months later. This is March. And we're in Florida. My family's in Florida. And we're like on the beach. And my brother like yells down from the thing, or he texted or something. I don't remember what it was. He's like, dude, Joe Biden just fell. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. My goodness. But it's not at Joe. It's at the people that were around him saying this was okay. I guess that's more of why I'm thinking about it, right? But I was like, no way. I was like, you're
defending it too.
Yeah. And it's like, I'll never forget, because like people were, again, if people are paying attention, they were predicting, and everyone was saying like, this is going to happen. This guy is going to like literally trip over himself, whatever. And not even 2 months later, he is tripping. And then they come out with like, it was the wind blew him over.
Yeah, it's windy there. And
you can't make this stuff up, man.
The same shit with like Justin Trudeau here. Like I watched the exact same thing with Trudeau in Canada. Like you'd see an angle of it and him getting off his fucking private jet and waving to everybody like he's a national hero. And then another angle, there's like literally two people there, airport security.
There's a reflection in the thing and there's no one there. And you're like,
it's just like a perfect representation of like how everything works through the controlled media. It's just wild, man. And you know, I was bored last weekend, I think, and I was watching like an old Trump documentary, and it was interesting because it was like based on the 90s and everything that Trump went through in the 90s. Like he went bankrupt.
Yeah, bankruptcy. Yeah.
But this guy told the story of Trump rebuilding the ice in New York, skating park.
Yeah.
And he's telling the story, and it was kind of like, yeah, Trump did this. He told the city that they're idiots and he can do it in 6 months. Did it. But like the story that they told was like he ripped off some lawyer, and then it goes to this lawyer to interview him, and he's like, yeah, Donald Trump, he's like, what an asshole. He told us that we were going to do this pro bono, and then we never got paid for it. And I'm like, man, you're a fucking lawyer and you don't know what pro bono means? And that's like the story that you're telling about this.
Yeah.
And then you listen to like a different version of it, like the real story. And it's like amazing how he did the whole thing and how he funded it and how he organized it all and how he actually contracted a company from Canada who was, skills were building ice in these weird places, and he got it
That's
done.
right. Yeah, that's right.
And there's just like 20
Talks about it in
different
one of the
things of
books.
like how cool this story was. But the only thing that was shown in this documentary is Trump ripping off this lawyer that Trump literally told him was going to be a pro bono job.
Hey, what do they say? History's faker than the news. I mean, you do have to be careful.
Man. It's just,
you
it's
know?
wild.
We all do.
Like,
man, oh man.
To me, it would make sense if it was just like a slightly different angle and like
Yeah.
maybe a detail was added to it or left out, but like two completely different versions of it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to, yeah, I don't know, man.
So that's the cool thing for me is that Bitcoin doesn't follow that bullshit. Bitcoin is all based on reality. There's no, mail-in ballots. There's no census changes or, making certain cities more populated than others. There's none of that. It's like whoever has the consensus based on real energy and economics, economic power is going to be the decider of it. That's how it should be.
Man, there's such a good, you made me think of something too. And even some of the stuff in the chat here with like Samson, seemingly, again, this is where I can make arguments for both sides. Like Samson saying one thing years ago and seemingly going the other direction now. There's many such cases. What's tough is, and again, makes me think of the American founding once again, is that the Revolutionary War started because of a bunch of Puritan, literally and figuratively people, a bunch of Puritan people, about a bunch of crazy psychopaths. Like we talked about Lexington Green only having 70 people on the green, of 3 million people. Like this was not many people. It's a bunch of crazy psychopaths. And then you have this world where like, then you go all the way over to like a Dan Held, where I saw Dan Held crashing out yesterday about like plebs are the worst things to ever happen to Bitcoin and blah, blah, blah. And I saw a video from Adam Livingston yesterday. And I haven't watched his stuff in like a year. I couldn't even tell you the last time I watched Adam Livingston video, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And, he kind of, obviously he's a strategy proponent, but he made a good case, like a 10-minute video, made a good case for both sides. Like, hey, I'm a pleb, like I believe in self-custody, but this is a new world. And where I'm going with all this is that I tend to be more of the Puritan, crazy psychopath guy. At the same time, and I think a lot of people in the Bitcoin space generally right now are that very visionary, right? We aren't, a lot of people don't understand us. There is this world though, where like Adam Livingston, what he was talking about, or even a Dan Held, God love him. I'm not going to sit here and hate on Dan Held because he's directly talking to someone like me. The average person isn't going to be a crazy psychopath guy with his musket on Lexington Green. That's not where the average person is, right? Running a node, doing all this stuff. So we have to go through these things because we have to bridge to this new world. It is that strategy and what they're doing and turning Bitcoin stretch into money and blah, 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 blah. I don't have no idea. Like it's probably somewhere between what I believe and like what a Dan Held or a Michael Saylor believes, it's somewhere in there, like it's somewhere. And that's where, again, you look at the American founding, all this stuff where the anti-federalists, the people that were really states' rights, they eventually, those movements, kind of collapsed because as it went out to broader and broader people, like again, James Madison, you maybe think of the Canadians bringing them down for the Woolman ice rink, but once the country started expanding more, there's guys in Kentucky and there's like people are like, we got to go take on Canada and take over the British there and do all this stuff. And then the Americans are just getting their ass beat basically by the British, like at the borders everywhere. Like Michigan got taken over, Detroit. And because the militias, none of it was coordinated. And then a lot of the militias were like, no, dude, like I'm good. Like I'm here to protect my state and that's it. Like I don't care about your conquest, stuff like that. And so it's like you really start seeing like, like the Puritan angle, as much as I would love it to be this Puritan, like Bitcoin's money, it's gonna be hyper Bitcoinized, it's all we're gonna use. It's probably not. It's probably gonna be some version that I don't necessarily agree with, but that gets the hyper Bitcoinization in 20 years from now or 50 years from now or whatever, So like I try to be humble myself to that as well, that most people aren't sick psychopaths. They're just not. So
yeah, it's true. I got a meeting in 1 minute here. I'm just going to text him and tell him I'm going to be a little bit late.
Oh, geez. Wow. It's already 11:59. Holy cow. What time? Where are you? Central time?
Yeah.
What are you? Yeah.
It's
Central
11 o'clock right now.
Yep.
Well, 1 minute. To
almost.
11.
Yeah. 1 minute to 11.
What was I going to say here? Yeah. I think this is worth talking about here. Because there's a couple different points from this here that I would say is like, number one, it's the same old shit, right? It's like somebody says something one time and then they hold that against them forever. It's like, it's kind of like an example we were just talking about here with Donald Trump. It's like somebody might have watched that documentary back in the 90s that Trump ripped off this lawyer. And that's kind of like their narrative that they think about Trump forever, is that he rips people off, even though he didn't know the whole story, or that it was a pro bono job or whatever.
Right.
So it's one person, one time in history. You can't really base everything off of that. Also, Samson Mao is just one person. He doesn't get to decide who Bitcoin is. For one. Everything that Samson Mao says, I don't agree with. That's just how it is. And you can't just follow people blindly because you learn something from them, or you really like them, or whatever it is. You have to look at every different thing objectively. But also, even the quote overall, there's general agreement, something should be done. So there's general agreement. That doesn't say that Samson Mao believes that, right? But it says something should be done about spam. The focus should be about progressing a soft fork proposal. Okay. So that's one part of it. And maybe Samson believes that a better soft fork, a better BIP would be making the block smaller to get rid of spam. Like, he's saying that it could be a soft fork along the way, but he's just disagreeing with the one that is currently in front of us right now. Like, you're allowed to do that. And that's kind of what me and Brandon are talking about right now. It's like, maybe this isn't the one, but that doesn't mean it's still not a problem in the future, and it can't maybe be solved in a different way. Right. So that's,
which is where we might be headed.
My response to it.
Yep. Yeah. And so thank you for bringing that back up too, because it's, again, this is what's hard to tell: incentives, trade-offs, and probabilities. And you don't know people's intentions either. You don't know everyone's intentions, and that's part of the game theory, and that's part of what's going on here. And, it's tough. I would have said, I'll say this. I was very concerned with what Core was doing a year or two ago, and for a while now. I think they have a little bit more credibility now that you have more OGs and then a lot of other people coming to their side, kind of breaking at the last second, because incentives, money flows, if you have OpenSats, or like, again, this consortium, right? Everyone's been talking about this consortium. If you have money coming in to pay devs, of course, and there's, 10 devs, 100 devs, or I could easily control a select group of people with money flows. That's concerning. And I think that's where a lot of this emanated from. The BIP 110, a lot of these things emanated from that. And so, which is valid concern. And it's a virtue signal saying, hey, we're not doing this. And then, hey, let's make a movement to do this. It should, and this is why it's so tough. You have a lot of 50-50 going on right now, because people are kind of breaking off. You have a lot of plebs going the BIP 110 route, and probably the younger crowd, meaning they haven't been into Bitcoin as much. So they're pissed off, rightfully so. Because you haven't had, who knows, price manipulation, things going on, ETFs. You have the big Bitcoin, not the big Bitcoin everyone's talking about, but like the big players coming in, which I guess that's what it means, I guess. But coming in, so who knows what kind of shenanigans are going on in the background. But that to me is what's very interesting, is just seeing the breaking off. But again, at the same time, I think there are a lot of OGs. I think there's a lot of people in this space that have a reputation, and let's be honest, have a lot of relationships, know a lot of the people, the devs, know a lot of people. And as a human, you don't want to back away from that. You don't want to be seen as, I'm going against these people, because that's just human nature. And so that's something that I think it's hard to grapple with as well. And I've given this example on one of my lives the other day of, you're flying in a plane, you're flying in a chopper, and it's a sandstorm and your gauges are broken. When the closer you get to the currency printer, what you have to be careful with, a sailor or people that have been in Bitcoin for a long time, is the human aspect, to the extent of your gauges might be broken. The magnet's pulling you the wrong way. You think you're going north, but you might be going south, and you just don't know, because there's a sandstorm, because it's a fog of war. And that's, again, something against a trade-off. And I don't know people's intention. It's just something you have to be wary of. And so, again, it just goes back to, I can make arguments for both sides. That's why we go, again, back to that thing you shared a minute ago of such a great post that guy made, because you have to zoom out. You have to really try to lower your emotion. And as much as I want to go on Twitter and do stuff, it's hard, because it's just, the algo's feeding you both sides, like rhetoric on both sides. And it's like, I can't even engage that much, because I want to try to stay above it and make arguments for both sides and really see where the puck is going. But it's very tough. It's very tough right now.
Yeah. And I would say that young people should feel the opposite of that. Like, if I was somebody who is older right now, like say 70, 75, and I somehow, by the grace of God, got into Bitcoin at that stage, I would be a little bit more pissed of what's going on right now. I would have a higher time preference. I want this thing to happen quicker. Somebody who's 25 years old, man, you got 50, 60, 100 years left to watch this play out. I wouldn't want to make changes to the foundation this easily in Bitcoin. And I think that's what really makes Bitcoin so powerful, is like kind of what you're talking about there, where You could come in with $15 million or hell, even $15 billion. You're still going to need to find a good proposal and a good way to communicate that properly so that people buy into what you're selling. You can't just do it with money. You can't buy votes. You can't pay people off like you can in the fiat system. And I think even core, like I agree with you.
At least that many. You can't pay off enough people, right? Like you
exactly.
can pay off. And sorry,
True.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's the part I actually missed and forgot was you could pay off a bunch of devs. And so initially I think it was very concerning. I'm not quite as concerned. Now, do I believe that the block should be smaller? Like you should have less, money, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I'm not as concerned as I was like a year ago or 2 years ago, because now there's more people that have, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. Like there's more, you can't pay off tens of thousands of people. You can't find everyone. Now, could you try to find some influencers or people that have influence to do it? You could, but it'd be hard to keep doing all that. It's possible. But that's where it's again, like, man, it's so tough.
And it gets harder as we go along. Like as
yes.
we go from like a very small segment of the world's population caring about this, it's going to get more difficult to change through time. And yes. I think that's a big component of what people are really missing right now is like, even if the $15 million was going to directly to the core developers, and then would they get another 15 million next month and next month and next month, they still can't do anything without proposing a change. Like core doesn't get to just throw in a rule change behind behind people's back. Like even if they wanted to make a change somehow to Bitcoin, they would still have to go through the same process that BIP 110 is doing right now. People would still have to go through this same thing with them. They can't just do things behind the scenes and not tell people. Because Bitcoin as it is will continue going until somebody changes the consensus rules of it. So I think that people think that all this money coming into core is going to somehow compromise the integrity of the time chain and the protocol. But like they would still have to propose a change, and then we would all still have to vote on that being the new implementation, the new consensus rules of Bitcoin. You can't just make changes without people knowing about it or voting on it. Like that's not how it goes. So the longest chain wins. It's very difficult to change. And even if core did want to make this big change to Bitcoin, they would still have to go through the process of it, even though they're the main implementation or the one that most people follow right now. That doesn't give them any superpowers, because you still have to change the consensus if you want to change Bitcoin. And that's the whole design of it.
Yeah. I think that BIP 110 either succeeds or I think we see another one. I don't know the other BIPs. I know there's other BIPs that have been thrown around and people said, well, what about this one? What about this one? I haven't looked into the other ones yet. But I think that's where we head. I think either BIP 110 succeeds, or if it doesn't, I just think we're right back here year or two from now, or a couple of years from now with a different BIP that maybe has more agreement, that more people, again, going back to compromise, going back to the founding fathers. So, some of the states were like, because they're protecting commerce in the north, they were protecting more agriculture, more the plantation stuff in the south. They had to figure out ways to compromise, and they had, and then some of them wanted just the House representatives, and then the Senate was a way to have equal representation, because the big states for small states, so like they had, bicameral legislature. They had to do these things, which some of them were like, no, this is going to be dumb. This is going to really affect things, but they had to compromise in order to get the Constitution passed. So that to me is, we're tracking with exactly what's happening there. So like, I'm not worried at all either way. Like I'm just not. And that's why, like, I don't want to see a bunch of crash outs, because we need everyone on the Bitcoin train, with their energy, but it is what it is. Like you have these ebbs and flows. There's going to be, unfortunately. And like you said, and like we, the post earlier, it's unfortunate that so many people have dove in so hardcore. Like I'm good with people being hardcore about stuff, but just trying to, like, getting into the mudslinging and just getting into that, because then you're like in a path of no return, right? Then you can't save face. And any deal, you need a win-win situation. And when you're dealing with humans, you need a way to let people down gently, and say, hey, like maybe I was wrong. Like, do I believe that blocks should be smaller? You should be building on these other layers, and Bitcoin should be money in the sense of it's capped at a certain amount, whatever. Yeah, I do. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, this has to win, or everything's dead. And, it's like life goes on. The sun comes up tomorrow, and there are other fights to fight out there outside of all this, again, going to, seeing the founding fathers and what was going on. There's all kinds of things, battlefronts we need to be on. And that's where, you can say your point and say, hey, these are my points, these are my reasons, these are my trade-offs, like we've done here today and we've done many times. And then people can make their decisions, do their homework as well, and then you keep debating, and it just doesn't end, right? Like this will not end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. I might feel a little bit differently if BIP 110 does activate, but I mean, that's kind of the thing for me is like, I don't think that it will based on the rules of Bitcoin and how it works. Like it's very difficult to change. And I just don't think that there's enough now. And that's not to say that I'm pro spam. That's not to say that I wouldn't want to ever change Bitcoin, the consensus of Bitcoin. Cause that's kind of, what we're saying here today is like, we both believe that spam shouldn't be on there. Everybody should be able to run a node. Bitcoin should be used as money, and that's a way to do it, I guess, long term. But like maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe in 2 years from now, BIP 111 comes out and it's just reducing the block size, and that's all there is to it. There's no other changes to anything else. It's just we just make the blocks a little bit smaller. I would probably vote for that. I would signal for that. But it's just like whatever they're doing right now, I just don't personally think should, it's not going to improve anything and through my eyes based on what I've seen and my knowledge of it. It seems like like you said earlier, like a virtue signal, and that's, good and bad, but I just don't think that this is the time and the place for it. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be closed-minded forever. I think that there are improvements to be made. And it's just sad that everybody kind of, if you have that opinion, all of a sudden you're pro spam and you're a pedophile and, you're an ossifier of Bitcoin, and it's just not the case. There's people who think that, yeah, we could do better, but this isn't the solution to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what gets lost. That's what gets lost in all of it. So unfortunately, but I don't know. I think it's gonna keep happening, which is good. I think different variations of this, and we'll keep figuring out ways to go. And maybe it has to be, let's be real. Like again, there's a lot of hatred against Luke. So maybe it has to be someone else other than Luke or Dathanome or whoever that wrote the BIP. Maybe it's got to be someone else, and it's gonna be the same exact thing. You put someone else's name on it, and guess what? Might have a little bit whatever. Luke is an ardent person. He's not the easiest person to get along with. It just is what it is, and I know a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way. They don't like the way he looks. They don't like what he believes in. There's a lot of that. Just going to be, got to throw it out there. It's just, I see a lot of that. And so maybe it's gotta be someone else. Maybe it's, any one of us, right? Like it's another developer that's like, hey, here's my proposal. So, but again, that's another fight a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, whenever that makes sense. People say, hey, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. We're having these problems, X, Y, Z, here we go. So,
and maybe it's nobody. Like,
yeah.
Do you wonder why Satoshi was anonymous and disappeared after? Maybe he didn't think that there should be one face of, the way things are run and decide. Yeah. Like,
that's it, George. Like, look, this is why virtue signaling is actually important in many cases, right? The Boston Tea Party, so I forget what it was now. It was the Stamp Act or the Sugar Act or Stamp Act. I can't remember, but they made, the Sons of Liberty, the people, they were intimidating all the British tax authorities coming here, and then Britain repealed it. They're like, okay, like you guys are just getting like all unhinged. So people throw that out there like it's a chirp, like it's a bad thing, but it's like virtue signaling is good because, like you said, maybe nothing ever happens. Maybe BIP 110 doesn't activate, and maybe you scare so many people into like submission almost that it's like, okay, this is going to get even crazier if we do X, Y. You just don't know. You just don't know, and that's where. I don't know. It's fascinating. This is so fascinating.
Yeah, well, there's going to be lessons learned from it for sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. Like, because the next time in a year or 2 or 5 years from now, there's going to be another BIP, and they're going to look at this situation and how it all unfolded and the psychology behind it and everything. They're going to look at it from all angles and say, how could we do this differently this time to make sure that we have a better chance of this happening? And again, I'm not writing BIP 110 off as like completely lost. So it's not looking great right now based on the objective data of it. But again, it could change.
Yeah,
but
could change.
Either way, people are going to learn from this. Hey, maybe we shouldn't put one guy, a very controversial figure, as our face of this proposal. Maybe we should. And I actually think that the BIP 110 side has done a much better job of like reaching the average person. But that's the difference here, right? Because Core doesn't have a communications team or a marketing team, right? And so
it's status quo to a degree. Like current day, it's status quo. Like I know it changed a few years ago, and they're changing the filters or changing the default stuff like that, right? but there's no like, it's just status quo. So it is hard to say like, okay, like Cratter,
Exactly.
he's been doing this for years, and then he's got a channel where he keeps, you know, documenting it and saying, hey, whatever, blah blah blah. Well, Core doesn't have that. Of course they don't, because it's just it's
Right.
yeah. So it makes it, you know, I guess therein lies, I guess, some of the issue too, where the BIP 110 side, like Cratter himself, for all the shit he's got, he has actually went through and documented all these different things and his thoughts on it and the trade-offs and what he thinks, whatever. I would love to see that on the other side. So to that point, I would love to have seen the Core side or the status quo side or whatever you want to call it, do more of that. And somehow, you know, anyway, so that's a really good point you make.
And it's a lessons to be learned from, you know, future proposers, but it's also lessons to be learned from the Bitcoiners who survived this civil war.
Yeah.
Like the ones who are still breathing and still, you know, holding their own keys at the end of this, is like, okay, maybe there's something to take away from this. Maybe just because somebody can give a good analogy about something, that doesn't mean that it's, you know, relevant to Bitcoin. Just because it's the average person can understand it, that doesn't mean it's actually good for Bitcoin. Sometimes you do need to be more technical with things, and you have to know the ins and outs of how this protocol works and the second, third level orders of it all. And so yeah, I do think it's going to be a very positive thing. And kind of, you know, one thing I've been pretty consistent with is like, I wasn't around for the block size wars, so I don't know how it went. I don't know what people were saying. I don't know where things were sitting at this time in the war. I do now. I have this under my belt. Next time there's one of these wars, I'm going to have a badge on my arm here because of what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good. There's good and there's good and bad.
Yeah, 100%.
Podge says if BIP 110 fails, you would support new different initiatives to address spam. But if BIP 110 succeeds, would you support efforts to develop, adjust, improve, and refine it? Well, I think Brandon probably has a different answer on this for me. If BIP 110 succeeds, I'm going to have to take, you know, a good hard look in the mirror and say, you know, was I right about this? Was I missing something here? Because I thought, and I think that Bitcoin's much more difficult to change than a bunch of loud voices on Twitter and a bunch of people buying Start9 servers. That's just me. You know, I come from the angle of like, if you want to make any substantial changes to this protocol, you're going to need tens, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of influence and energy to change it. And if it's this easy to change, you know, maybe I was wrong about Bitcoin. So I don't really know where I'm going to fall if it does succeed, but I'll have to do some soul searching, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, we kind of talked about this earlier. I talked about it a little bit. I mean, I'm gonna fight for either way. So yeah, I mean, I will. I think the protocol itself is at least right now is the hill to die on, unless the cap changes or, you know, the supply cap or something of that nature, or we somehow find some new periodic element to add to the table where it gives us somehow a better money, I don't know how to say that really, but those are to me like the only two ways really I would really question it. I mean, maybe George, let's talk really quickly about because again, I don't claim to be an expert of the block size wars. I know you don't either. We weren't there. We came in right after that, you know, so we didn't get to live through it. But the economic nodes versus just nodes, right? And I think this is an important thing to just maybe talk about quick is, you know, the nodes, everyone says run a node, the nodes control the network, and they do, because they choose what to run. Economic nodes do carry more weight, being exchanges, the wallet providers, the miners, stuff like that, because they're running more transactions through more throughput. Sense. Yeah, exactly. Like more throughput. So that's where the virtue signaling to me is important in the sense of putting pressure on those big providers, because to what we're saying, you could have big players come in and put pressure on those providers, a la kind of what we saw in 2017 a little bit with the block size wars, the New York agreement, stuff like that. And they try to do it through the miners, generally speaking, right? And people capitulated at the last second, and then things kind of domino from there a lot of times. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that's like to George's point, that's why you can't just spin up like a Sybil attack or Sybil. I never remember how to say it.
I think it's Sybil. I don't know either.
I think it's Sybil. But yeah, you can't just spin up 100,000 nodes and just have them just running and doing nothing, right? Like you can't, if no one's running their transactions through there in the sense of a huge throughput, then
You're a ghost.
You're a ghost. Yeah, exactly. It's falls flat on its face, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the best analogy for it, but the best way to say it. So that's why I think there'll be a lot of people on both sides questioning. This is why it doesn't end, because to your point, I think a lot of people will question, say, hey, I thought you couldn't just spin up all kinds of nodes, whether they're fake or not, Sybil attack or not, or whether it is 20,000 plebs running nodes and just change Bitcoin. And I think conversely, people will say the same thing, like, well, fuck, if the 20,000 plebs aren't able to, a small area rate minority, a good chunk of the system wants to change, we have no say at all. So you're going to see, you know, so like that to me is going to be fascinating. And that's that, to me, everything comes down to that right there. And that's why you'll see people fork off that, or you know, fork off at least their mindset, or leave the space, or maybe there's a fork. I have no idea. But what are your thoughts in that regard? Because to me, everything comes down to that right there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you think about like the miners and the nodes and how the relationship between the two, I just keep thinking like how perfect, not perfect maybe is the wrong word, but like how beautifully designed the consensus mechanism is, where you can't have overfunding in one area and really have all the control there. Because to me, it really boils down to hash rate. You know, who has the hash rate? And then when you listen to like a Jason Lowry talk, like that's the whole thing, is who has the most hash rate. So I think ultimately, and a lot of people probably don't like hearing this based on the centralization or perceived centralization of Bitcoin today, the miners hold the majority of the power. I do think that the economic nodes or the node runners overall could influence the miners, but at the end of the day, it still comes up to who has the hash power and which version of Bitcoin they're directing their hash towards. So it's tough for people to hear that, I think, as like, you know, you want to have some sort of influence in Bitcoin, but I still think people do. And I do think that if there was enough of it,
you absolutely do.
Then the miners could be swayed either way. I do believe that.
That's why I think this. That's why I don't think anyone truly knows what will happen in this. I think it's cliche to say it's 50-50, but all it takes is one or two people, or a decent sized player to capitulate, or, you know, whatever. Right. So and that's what it takes, because it can't be 30,000 or 100,000 random nodes, ghost nodes, just changing system. To your point, that's not how it'll happen.
That's mail-in ballots to me. That's how
it is. Yeah. Yep. So it's, you can't do that, which is great. To your point, like you can't just spin up these nodes randomly, because then, like you said, a state actor could just come in and be like, oh, here's 2 million nodes. Sorry, guys, we win. So that is the beauty of the system. So you have to garner enough support and enough economic weight to have the heaviest chain, right? And so this is why, you know, it might happen quick. Who knows? It could take a little while. You know, I think there could be some interesting outcomes in that sense. And there's something else I was going to say too. But this is such a fascinating topic, because this is where it will, like you said, whether it's if enough people deem it to be. This is where, again, you go back to, it's hard to pay off enough amount of people on either side, right? Like you were kind of mentioning this earlier, and it only gets tougher and tougher as more people come to the network. It's hard to, because you have to get to certain points to do things to the chain, or to do things to the consensus, whether it's a 51% attack or something like this. It gets so hard to all of a sudden, I'm trying to pay off all these influencers and wallet exchanges and miners in order to do this. But if there's enough, right, like we said, it's a spectrum. I think that's what's important to remember too. It's a spectrum of, if we're changing, what's the worst thing possible, right? Changing the supply cap, probably, because then you're looking at 95 to 99%, hopefully, right? I would imagine, of the network coming immediately saying, no, not going to happen. But then you have this spectrum of different changes and what people want and what people deem appropriate and worthwhile. And that's where we're at. And that's why the gauge is somewhere in this area, right? That's why it makes it tough. Oh
yeah, and you know, thinking through this whole thing, I just love being able to talk about this. Like, you know, I go on Twitter and I see a take, and I'm like, okay, that's stupid. I disagree with it. Say my piece and then move on. But like, to be able to kind of go back and forth and really think things through, that's something you don't get anywhere else.
It's weird, because you said there should be more of that.
Yeah,
weird.
And I just like the idea of you know, the miners, because even if you kind of go along with what we're saying here, which I think we both agree on, like the miners do have more control of the network. They can be influenced either way, but like the hash
Mhm.
rate is the one that decides, who mines the block, what chain it's on. That's the miners. Nobody can really disagree with that, I don't think. But the thing is like, even if there is 6 miners, if you kind of play through the thought experiment of this, let's say that there's 6 miners and there was a bunch of funding came into one of the miners, that somebody makes a proposal to change the consensus rules. One of the miners is on board with it because they're paid off and funded and whatever. It's not in the best interest of the miners, because their whole livelihood, all the infrastructure that they have in place, all this energy that they've spent, why would they risk making a change to Bitcoin if the node runners and the users of it didn't want to use it anymore? Like,
Right.
They have to fall in line with what people want still. Even though the nodes don't get to decide which way it goes, they can say, hey, we don't want this. We don't value this. So all of a sudden you have all these miners with all this infrastructure all over the place. Why would they put that at risk? It doesn't make any sense. Like, the game theory of this whole thing doesn't make any sense to me for miners making some crazy change to it. Even though it is centralized, you could argue that, but I would say, the argument of that is they're only pools. You can redirect your hash, whatever. Point is, though, miners are incentivized to cater to the users. That's kind of what I'm saying here. Because if they start sending,
they have a lot of hardware invested.
It's a waste.
Yep.
So
they have a
even
ton
if there
invested.
was influence and somebody flipped, you could still argue that, well, what's the point of that? There's no reason to do that. You're going to fork everybody off the network, and whatever you built for the last 20 years is going to be worthless for what?
Right. What's interesting to me, like, you go back to, mining centralization just in general is a big issue to me. I mean, like you said, you can repoint your hash or, I guess is that way to say it?
Redirect your hash.
Redirect your hash. Thank you. You can redirect your hash. And maybe we'll see that, right? Maybe we'll see some of that here in the coming weeks. Yeah, and I hope we do. I'm surprised it hasn't happened more already, just in general, like over the last year or two, really since Ocean has come out. Like, I'm really, really surprised that there hasn't been more people starting to do that. And but again, necessity is the mother of all invention. And that's why I think some of these things, when,
exactly,
coming back to everything we've been saying, when society deems it worthy enough, you'll have people doing it. And that's why the BIP 110 thing is tough. It's somewhere, the gauge is somewhere in here. We don't really know, the block size wars, obviously we're a little bit more, maybe 50, 60, 70% over here. A supply cap issue would be like 90%, 90 to 100% of people will be like, no. So it's like this spectrum. And that's, again, what makes this one very tough, obviously, because it is so kind of a toss up ish. And like you said, the crazy part is there's a lot of people that, we don't believe in spam in the chain. Like you said, I don't want spam in there. I don't want, CP in there. I don't want stuff. Neil Flesher, a good buddy, right. He's come out for BIP 110. And he said even a year or two ago, he's like, I mean, if that does happen, he's like, I don't want it to, and that's why I'm going this way. One of his reasons, right? But he's like, it's just a different fight to fight. Then at that point, it's a different. The battle landscape changed. Like we had to change. It was such a good thought on it as well. Of like, you have to fight a different way. Like I'm dying on the Bitcoin hill. And if that does happen, because some of this is tough too, right? You're trying to think ahead. It's a trade-offs, probabilities, incentives. You're trying to think ahead. Even the quantum stuff, right? We've heard a lot about the quantum stuff. We have a few people pushing it. All of a sudden, all the energy usage went away because of AI data centers. So now it's just completely flipped right to quantum all of a sudden, like literally the next day. I've never seen FUD just turn that fast. So that's weird in and of itself, but I digress. And so you have quantum where it's like, well, we don't know when it's going to happen. You have people, this consortium or Nick Carter, you got people like really like pushing this. And it's like, well, is it a threat right now? And that's where, like, again, that's like way down here. Like a lot of people are kind of like, not really, guys, like not yet, So
I would be on that side for sure.
Yeah. So
least of my concerns right now.
Right. So, and that's dude, just do a quantum video and guess what? You'll have 7 people watch it. We did a Bitcast like a month or two ago. And I think it was like the lowest performing Bitcast that we've ever done pretty much.
Quantum?
Yeah. It was like a quantum headline and all this stuff. And it was like 0 people care about it. So, take that for what it is, I guess, but it just goes to show you the spectrum of it. But
yeah. And it's, Baller here said ASIC hardware is all made in China. we need to decentralize this somehow. Well, it's another thing that's being worked on right now. Like Dorsey's company has Proto, I think it's called Proto Mining. So they're building ASICs here. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. I think that that's the best way to describe it for me. And I think that, kind of going back to when we're looking at this 2 years from now and who won and who lost and how they did it, I think that if BIP 110 does somehow end up, activating and being successful at it, I think that they controlled the narrative better. I really do. I think the core's done a horrible job, and it's whether it's right or wrong. Like, I'm not an anti-core. I'm really not. I think that they're developers. Their job is to make Bitcoin better and more efficient, and they don't really need to, kind of going back to the status quo, they don't need to explain everything to everybody on their policy changes, because if you don't agree with it, you could just run a different one. But Core handled it very poorly. And the way that I was thinking about this the other night, and really, like, this makes sense to me why BIP 110 has so much traction right now, even if it isn't a good idea for Bitcoin, even if it, most people don't understand what's really happening. I think that what they did is the Core, basically anybody who disagreed with Core, they called them retards or stupid.
Like, you're not technical enough. Yeah, exactly. That was the mistake. That was the big mistake. Yeah.
The BIP 110 side, if you disagree with us, you're a pedophile.
Right.
Those are two different things. Like for how people want to be called.
Right.
Like people, you call me a retard, I'm like, well, fuck you. I don't care what you think. But you call me a pedophile, I'm like, whoa, I need to examine myself here. I'm on the right side of this or not?
Right.
So whether it's true or false, the BIP 110 side definitely had a better way to communicate what they were doing. They used analogies that the average person could understand, and they called anybody who disagreed with them pedophiles. That's a pretty effective strategy.
It is.
Whereas Core was like, you're not technical enough. We don't need to explain it to you. You're retarded. So it's like, it's very easy to see where people found their footing with this. And again, I don't think that everybody knows what they're doing or what they're talking about, but that's part of it too, because not everybody's
not everyone can. None of us can. Right. I don't. Like I've been in we've been in Bitcoin 8-9 years, and I've studied this now a fair amount, especially over the last week or two. I was finally able to just dig into it a lot more. And yeah, I mean, it's you never can. None of us can ever know, and none of us can know the trade-offs, probabilities, incentives, and intentions of others. You just can't know it. And that's the beauty of life. Like, that's, again, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, like we said. It's even if the Bitcoin network goes away tomorrow, just ceases to exist, sun still gets up. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's where I think that some people need to look in the mirror a little bit and just think about that. So both sides, where every Bitcoiner in general needs to look at themselves and just kind of check themselves before they wreck themselves, as my aunt always used to say. So
yeah, and that's what it is, right? It's like it's something that is really aligned with nature to me, and human psychology, and just how we work, how chaotic the world is. And Bitcoin to me is an anchor to that version of us. And I think that the beauty of this whole thing going on right now is that, it isn't changed. Just like you can't stop the sun from coming up tomorrow. You can't mail in a bunch of ballots, or you can't bring in a truckload of ballots in 3 a.m. to decide that the sun's going to change tomorrow, because that's nature. That's the laws of the universe. And Bitcoin aligns with that to me. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm so passionate. That's why I show up here every day about it, because it makes sense to me. And so I think that if you had the ability to sway with $15 million or running up a bunch of nodes, then that's not Bitcoin. I was wrong about it. If this plays out, then, but I don't think that it will. I just don't. I don't think that there's enough support for it. I could be wrong. I don't care. But we're going to see soon. And it really doesn't matter what I say. That's the cool thing about it, is it doesn't matter what my opinion is. If I had $1 billion in the bank account and I wanted BIP 110 to fail, I couldn't really do anything about it. Right. It's just, that's the beauty of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And yeah. So like even, Odinus to say the network will get hacked by the last comment here, the most recent one, the network will get hacked by quantum before a fork will be released. So maybe that's was that 10 years from now, 20 years from now? I don't know. I mean, I think it's,
how do you hack the network though?
Well, yeah, I guess that's part of it too, right? I was thinking from the other perspective, but just a fork. I was thinking from the fork side of, I mean, again, we've seen forks in the past. We probably will see forks in the future too, whether it's now or whether it's 10 years from now. I think we'll see stuff. And again, you have to. And part of this too, it's tough because like Neil had told me that, hey, if this stuff ends up in the blockchain, like people already think it's for criminals. Like this goes back to the Elizabeth Warren stuff we've been talking about. Like all Elizabeth Warren has to do are politicians and say, like, look how Bitcoin's a 4-letter word in general at this point. The average person doesn't want anything to do with Bitcoin. Their bank accounts aren't frozen and they think Bitcoin's for criminals and pedophiles already. So like, what's the difference at the end of the day? Like I'm surprised those attacks even work just inside the Bitcoin community because we're already there. Like, look at everyone in the world thinks that's what it is. We have to fight over that somehow. And that's why, to me, I think it's such a longer term fight. And this is going to take years and probably a decade or two for the older generation to pass on their wealth to the younger generation, and et cetera, because we're just in this stalemate right now, society. That's why, like, I laugh with like the strategy and all the things they were doing. And then like all the way down to the Bitcoin Puritans, which I would consider myself. There's nothing any of us can do. There's no, like, you can't get 10 more Donald Trumps to like say he loves Bitcoin, or even if Elizabeth Warren flips tomorrow and says she loves Bitcoin, that will not convince anyone. If no one hasn't noticed, if anyone hasn't noticed, there's nothing you can do to shortcut this process. And I think that's the problem. This goes back to what's in the blockchain itself or the quantum stuff. These are problems that are, yes, are they in the future or could they be in the future? Yeah. The trade-off is if you're doing things haphazardly, maybe, I don't know the best word, if you're doing things too soon, could you be constricting yourself? And again, these are the trade-offs. These are the probabilities. None of us know. And again, that's the beauty of life, like we said. But that to me is like, I think there's a lot of Bitcoiners. What I've sensed is I thought there's a lot of Bitcoiners that were in the fight, that they're going to be ones in the Lexington Green. And I realized that most Bitcoiners aren't. They get scared at the word weapon. They get scared at the word of using these terms. They're like, oh, it's like, this doesn't end. You think the government, there's one court case and all of a sudden your life, like you're fine all of a sudden? Get out of here with that. And that's where life's a battle every day. And I just realized most Bitcoiners aren't down to battle. There's zero battle in most Bitcoiners. They think I'm going to buy Bitcoin, I'm going to put it in self-custody, and then I win. And then life's going to be easy after that. That's a great way to lose really quickly. And here we are. And just people, they don't want to get in politics. They don't want to get involved. They're not in for the fight. They don't want some label on them. It's like, what are we? Some woke snowflake? Like this, if the Bitcoiners in general would just, everyone who owned Bitcoin in the world at all just stood up, guess what? The world would turn around like, uh-oh, game over. But we don't. We can't, because it's a decentralized network and none of us can figure out how to get along even between ourselves, right? So we to Gary Cardone's point, I think he has a point in that sense of like, yeah, you guys can't coordinate. We can't figure stuff out and blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah, that's the beauty of the system. But also, what does that mean? You can't shortcut the process. This is going to take time. And most people aren't okay with that. They want it now. They want a shortcut. They want an ETF. They want a wrapper. They want this. They want BIP 110. They want core. Like they think something is going to get us to Valhalla. And it's just not.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to people.
You're absolutely right. And, we had a good chat on, I think it was Maple Bitcoin with Rajat on Friday. And we were talking about, shortcuts and how the world just loves shortcuts. And I think a good example of this would be, feedlots, cows, you try to shortcut that. You try to shortcut by pumping it full of, hormones, growth hormones, and all these things to make sure that cow gets fatter so you can butcher it quicker, so you can get paid quicker. And that's just not nature. That's not how it works. You can get away with it for a while, but on the other side of it, you tell a very big difference between, a cow on a feedlot and a cow that's been able to just graze, grass-fed, happy. There's a big difference there, and it cannot be shortcutted. I think that's what the lesson that people are learning here. And you can try to do things quickly, but it's again, it goes back to nature, and you can't shortcut growing a tree. You can't shortcut feeding a cow and getting it ready for slaughter. You can't shortcut these things. You can try, but it's not sustainable. And I think you're absolutely right there in the sense of like, people will try, but they're going to fail. And there's going to be lessons learned, and we're going to keep learning these lessons over time. So anyways, I see Superman in the chat here.
Super.
Telling everybody that he has no idea what he's talking about with comments like this. So we're not going to spend any of our time and energy acknowledging that. If he won't put the time in to learn Bitcoin, we're not going to put the time into arguing with him. So anyways, Brandon,
great stuff.
Great chat today. Just like every Monday here. I think, I don't know, maybe we could, do you have a couple minutes here after the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I was going to say we should come up with a little strategy going forward here for the Monday shows. So anyways, hope everybody enjoyed the show today. Rishi's saying I can't refute his points. Yeah, those are great points, man. You should write a book.
Oh man, I mean, in the sense of like number go up is the biggest marketing arm of Bitcoin. So like,
100%.
yeah, people are hurting. Like, yes, there's nuance to what he's saying, obviously.
Yep.
But just saying like Bitcoin's a scam, all this stuff. It's like, okay, so yeah, I mean, people are human and they want number go up and they are hurting. So even though the answer's in front of them, it's hard to think long term when you're in pain right now.
Yeah,
right. Like 100%. I could change humanity right now, or in the future, my kids. But guess what? People aren't having kids, so they don't care. They care about things right now, and so he's right in that sense.
Yep.
But
it's just like people. This is a good analogy for this. It's like people who have headaches all the time. You can take an Advil and get rid of it very quickly, but you kind of deteriorate your stomach over time, which is going to lead to problems in the future. Or you could figure out why you have headaches. Are you spending too much time on the screen? Are you not drinking enough water? Are you not getting enough exercise? But that's hard for people. People want the easy thing. And, Rishi's right. And as Brandon said here, people come into Bitcoin for the price. A lot of people leave when the price goes down. But over time, the people who, watch it go up, watch it go down, begin to understand what's happening here and why Bitcoin's much more than just a fiat value. Then they stick around. They become the new foundation of Bitcoin. So maybe Rishi will get there one day, and that today's not today. Today's not the day, and that's fine. So, anyways, final thoughts, Brandon?
Study up. Do your homework. That's sound money is going to be the only way out for society. Obviously, to reorient incentives, and going to fight either way, no matter what happens. And these fights are going to continue. Just know that. Like. That 1763, the American Revolution started, and those guys, the oldest revolutionary guys, didn't die till 1820s, 1830s, and they were still changing their mind on things, figuring stuff out, fighting stuff, writing letters to the people in Congress at that time, because they were looking for help. Hey, what should we do here? So these things don't end. That's why I said a minute ago, most people aren't down for the fight. We think we can just walk into the corn and just disappear, and like things will be fine, and just let the rest of society burn. But I don't think that's how it's going to play out. We got to be involved. You got to educate and be involved. That's the only way out here.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, Rishi, if you actually want to have a conversation about this, we go live, or I go live every Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Don't have time today, but anyways, I wanted to share this quickly. I wanted to share this during the show today. Did you see this? From the White House today?
No.
Hop in, the best dimension yet. Let's watch this video quick. It's only 36 seconds long. It's pretty weird, I'd say. One plus one plus one equals 3 wins. Do you understand that?
No, I'm not sure.
Make America Great Again hat, Diet Coke, and seal of the President of the United States. Yeah. Anyways, I'll let it play.
Brilliant at marketing and branding, I'll tell you that much. Who was it? Was that Mandami with him? Who the hell was that? Or Vance, maybe? Or like who?
I was trying to figure that out too.
Must be. I
didn't know.
I thought it was Mandami at first, but it must be Vance.
Well, Chuck Schumer's taking off his face, and he's
you can see Chuck Schumer.
A dragon chasing these guys in a what is this called? A shuttle or a no?
Yeah,
what are those called? Alien
UFO something or another, little saucer, saucer. Yeah. Best dimension yet, though. The,
Who is
so
that?
the, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess it only makes sense if it's Vance, but huh. I mean,
What was the other thing there? Oh, well, here's another one for you. Yeah, Vance would make the most sense, but it doesn't
yeah,
really look like Vance.
yeah, it doesn't look like him a ton. But
This is a new one here. The other day there was so this is from the US debt clock, this secret window here. But there was a different one the other day. It said, how is the asset seizure from the cartel coming along? And it was a different guy who I'd never heard of before, Captain something. But it basically said, very good, sir. You would not believe what we've uncovered or what we found. And it was like tombs and gold and all these other things. But this is Andrew Jackson here, looks like.
yeah.
This is new today. It says, how would you deal with the cartel bankers, a public takedown or military tribunals? No mercy, no refuge. Their insidious scheme must be dismantled using all means.
Wild.
So we got some so that's what it was the other day too. The US Treasury repo squad basically saying like how much they've stole from people, they're gonna try to get back. That was the idea there. And so some tribunals here with the rope. Interesting.
Dude, there's so much to say here. We'll have to, whatever. It just, this is, so number one, really quick, the dimension makes me think of spiritual warfare. UFOs constantly used for like 70 years as a trial balloon to see how gullible the public was. We know that actually. And UFO alien stuff also is, at least in my belief, from the things I've studied, it's the devil. Again, that's spiritual warfare, which is a different dimension. That's obviously not this dimension. So that's where, if you put all those things together, that makes perfect sense to me, to be totally honest. Spiritual warfare, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But be careful with UFO stuff, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, people get hoodwinked and led down these paths, like in this dimension, like it's aliens. So anyway, but this is interesting because people, whether they think Trump's doing the bidding or not, this is where I've been saying, as you know, Jor, like the toothpaste is out of the tube with many of these things. He's the exposer in chief. Donald Trump's not going to be one to do these things, but he's exposing things. Like he could be getting paid off, for all I know, by the British Crown. Like he could be an op for them. I have no idea.
Trump?
Yeah. But the problem is he's exposing it for the rest of us. Like it's on us to take the mantle and run with these things now going forward. Like, are they really going to prosecute military tribunals of people, or Fauci or central bankers? I mean, come on, probably not. But it's on the rest of the younger generations to pick up the mantle here at the end of the day. So it's wild.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but when you actually just take a step back and kind of think of everything that's played out in the last decade, like there's been a lot of changes that people just kind of go, they don't have a memory longer than last week. But like all the Hollywood stuff, all the media, all the, now it seems like the central bankers are kind of at the forefront of all this. But, I would say just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Just because you think, Trump says one thing, that doesn't mean that there's 10 different things going on in the background. I think that's what people really need to understand about this. And you're right. Like, I don't know. You don't know. We're not going to sit up here and like we do know. But I would say that, there's a lot of things that do take place that the general public has no idea about. And a lot of it's bad, but, a lot of good people on this planet too. A lot of people who don't want to go down the surveillance, the flock, all that kind of shit, and the fiat system. So it seems to me like it is ending either way. It will be interesting to see kind of how the whole thing plays out, because, I was somebody who historically thought we don't need to take care of Fauci or the central bankers. Karma will get them, or, God will get them. Yeah. But I think we're kind of at the point now for humanity to heal. We need to see this stuff for our own eyes. We have Bitcoin, we have the tool. Make sure this shit doesn't happen again in the future. I believe anyways, and this could be controversial, but I think that we do need to see this stuff with our own eyes before we can fully heal from what they've done to us.
Yeah, and it's from seeing the files, the things themselves, all the way to having some type of justice. And I don't know what that all looks like. I haven't thought through a ton of that necessarily, but this is where I do believe that the files coming out, whether it's 9/11 files, JFK, on and on and on, all the way up till now, Epstein stuff or whatever, I think these things, again, exposure in chief. I think Trump has started a lot of things. Some of them maybe he's finished, but he's not going to be the one to finish a lot of them. And the guy's 80 years old or 83 or whatever the hell he is, right? So it's like, and like we've said, he's the president, so he's only there so long. It's on the younger generations to take these mantles and run with them. Even the Twitter files. Like if these things come out too quickly, then everyone just runs right over them and you just forget. And the Twitter files is kind of like that a little bit. I kept dropping them like every week. They'd be dropping them and dropping them and dropping them. And it's like, I don't even know what's going on. I stopped paying attention after like the first week. And we are people that are plugged in and actually looking at stuff. So to me, it's the kayfabe of let it play out in a story over time here, but it's going to be on all of us to continue playing these things out and exposing this stuff.
There was a post from the famous boards, something along the lines of drip, 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 flood. Drip, 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 flood. Which means to me, anyways, like you can't just show everything at once. People's heads would literally explode.
100%.
And I say that because I feel like in 2020, it would have been 2019, 2020, where I was exposed to some things that really fucked with me for a while, like the Anthony Weiner stuff, the Pizzagate stuff, the Hillary Clinton stuff. That really messed me up. And it kind of carved a path. It's what really led me to Bitcoin. And I think that, certain people were meant to see that before others. I think anyways, I'm somebody who believes that, everything is in a plan right now. Everything's part of the plan. And the more you resist it, the worse it's going to be for you. But point is what I'm trying to say here is that the average person can't handle how much evil there is and how much has gone wrong in the last 100 years here. So I think it has to be whether, as much as we would like to see it all come out at once and we can kind of all move on, I just don't think that that's the best thing for everybody.
It goes back to Jesus Christ. I mean, look, you taking on the sin of the world and how, it was the most brutal way you could be murdered, right? Just butt naked, just getting whipped for hours and literally your body being broken in half and then being nailed to a cross. I mean, like that was to take on all the evilness of the world. Look, and then you zoom to now, like Sean Ryan, right? Like that was his mind's broken now. I know some people who have lost their mind, actually, that I know of, like distant, extended, friend type stuff who've lost their mind, because they've gone down these rabbit holes and seen hell and, literally seen hell. And that's where the Sean Ryan thing. So now people have some type of thing to kind of latch onto. If I just said that, not everyone maybe, but like the Sean Ryan stuff of him coming on Tucker, he's like, yeah, I'm done, man. Like I've literally seen hell. And yeah, it ain't good. And that goes back to the spiritual warfare. And like you said, if people knew the depravity of what goes on earth, which is not most people, right? I mean, like we're all made good in God's image, but we're all susceptible to temptation and what can be done in pockets of the earth and corners of the earth for thousands of years. And you think about that, it's not pretty. And so, we live a very comfortable life, many of us, and a sanitized life. Fortunately, God has grace on us that we don't have to live in that realm, but just knowing, hey, this is what exists around you. And this goes back to, I think, why I have such a hard time with many human beings, because they believe the leaders have their best interest at heart, or this, that, and that. And it's like, what planet do you live on? What dimension are you in? Because I would like to be there. Like just to have your head in the sand that deep and just to be like, like it's unbelievable, Jor. I don't understand it. And like you said, I don't claim to know everything. I haven't seen some of the things that some people have. I've seen some bad things in my life, but like, holy cow, that leads us down to these dark paths, unfortunately, of more of this stuff happening when people just put their heads in the sand and realize and think that life's all lollipops and it's just, and don't like the battle and don't understand that life is a battle. That it blows me away.
Yeah, but the governments and the central entities have sure capitalized on people who don't want to do anything. That's for sure.
100%.
You don't need, it defies nature. It defines physics. It defines all of that. Yep. And, it succeeds for a while, but it's not a sustainable path. And I think that's what we're seeing follow right now.
Mm-hmm. True.
So anyways, thanks, Brandon.
Great stuff, guys.
We'll catch you tomorrow, hopefully on the mastermind. Yep. And just stick around here. We'll chat for a couple minutes, but thanks everybody for tuning in today. We probably didn't talk about it enough, or I should have mentioned it a couple times throughout, but on Mondays, Brandon and I split our zaps, and shout out to Maria. I think there was a couple on there, Maria, Mark, a couple smaller ones on there, But we appreciate it. So you can just send it to
Thanks,
Jor
guys.
at Rizful, and then I'll split her up with our guy Brandon here. So that's it, everybody. If I can find it here, what the hell? I have like 100. There we go. So thanks, Brandon. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow morning, and then the mastermind tomorrow, and we'll see what happens going forward for the rest of the week. So thanks, Brandon. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.